Live, the news you count on. NBC2 News at 3.
NBC2 is tracking the latest forecast cone from Hurricane Ian as the storm picks up strength.
We're showing you how our community is getting ready.
We're tracking how Southwest Florida cities are preparing. Right now, you're taking a live look at Cape Coral. Looks calm now, but we'll tell you how the city plans to respond if those canal levels rise.
And digging in to keep the floodwaters out, how coastal Charlotte County is preparing.
Everybody in Florida is going to have potential impacts from this storm.
How state officials and agencies are gearing up to help you and your family.
And we're making sure your home is ready.
From top-notch safety to last-minute ideas to keep you safe, but they won't break the bank during the storm using a penny and just a cup of water. I'll tell you more coming up on NBC2 News at 3.
And the center, the eye of Hurricane Ian, still a very long ways away from us to the south of Cuba. But tropical moisture out ahead of the storm is already pushing into the area, and that means rainforest as early as tonight. The rest of the forecast as NBC2 News at 3 starts in just a few minutes.
Commissioner? Hello. Little Sinatra. Little Bruno. Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, and thank you to everyone.
We have a lot to get to on NBC2 News at 3. We want to take you right to the Lee County Emergency Operations Center, where officials are updating our community ahead of Hurricane Ian.
Let's go ahead and
Prioritizing planning and meeting current needs and staging certainly for the post-storm assistance. As we always say, we plan for the worst and we hope for the best. While we listen to a variety of informational sources, we should encourage everyone to go to leegov.com for the most current information. There are a variety of links there which touch on a number of topics that can help all of us plan accordingly. Important updates are also posted there daily. So stay in touch, gather your information, and make the decision that is right for you and for your family. always err on the side of being safe. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Lee County Manager Roger DeLegge.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to take you through some operational decisions that have been made in the last few hours. First of all, we've been watching this storm for almost a week now, and the forecast track has changed somewhat over the last couple of days, but you all know all about that. So I just want to talk for a minute about this morning, Lee County declared a state of local emergency following the governor's declaration yesterday. And what that does is provide for us the opportunity to recapture federal funds for dollars that are expended locally in preparation for and response to this storm. As we stand here this afternoon, the EOC is partially activated in anticipation of full activation tomorrow morning. We'll be receiving briefings from the National Weather Service throughout the rest of the evening, so there'll be decisions made tomorrow morning based on the Weather Service briefings. There will be some government closings starting tomorrow and Wednesday, and I don't think will be a complete list, but let me tell you the ones that we are certain of right now, and that is all Lee County offices will be closed Wednesday and Thursday of this week. Lee County School District, all school has been canceled and closed Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. Also closed Tuesday and Wednesday are the property appraiser, tax collector, supervisor of elections, clerk of courts in the court system, and Florida Gulf Coast University. I suspect there will be others, but for the moment, that's the list that we have. I'm sure there will be questions about evacuations and sheltering, but those decisions have not yet been made, although we are fully prepared to take actions depending on what the storm does throughout the evening. So with that, I'll turn this over to Sheriff Marcino, and then when we're all finished, you all can ask your questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. With these storms, obviously we're no stranger. The state of Florida is no stranger to these storms. Although we've had a quiet season, today we are here because we want to be very proactive. And that unpredictability to the east or west could cause us a lot of grief. So what we want to do is look at this as three parts. Okay, it's before the storm. We want you, which you can control, to do everything to safeguard your home, safeguard all your things that could possibly fly around, the objects, chairs outside, things like that, and make sure that you have your perishables, non-perishables, and everything in order, your water, all the stuff that you need to get through, and that's most important. And then during the storm, okay, after 45 miles per hour, law enforcement comes off the street, and we are no longer responding to calls until that storm passes. So we want you to be ready for that. We want you to be in the right place. We want you to be protected. And know, we will re-engage immediately and go back out and assist and take calls. And then post the storm. This one I want to touch on in more detail because after the storm, people's first responses are to get back out. And what we ask of you is if you don't have to be out, not to be out. Because we don't know exactly what is safe or unsafe. We are assessing. We're looking at roads and bridges. We're looking at possible downed electrical lines that are all unsafe. And while you may think it's safe, the last thing we need is to get, a person, in jeopardy of their safety because they rushed right back out. We will continue to bring you updates. As you can see, this team is amazing. Okay, we come together. We're monitoring every single move. And I can tell you this, my family members, the men and women of the Sheriff's Office, we have all assets, all technology, everything is ready by the fingertip. We're ready to go, and we're ready for anything that comes our way. We want to keep our fingers crossed that we don't have to utilize it, but being ready, being proactive to ensure the great residents of this county are going to be safe, and we are ready for that. Again, we just ask you to please, if you don't have to be out, don't be out. We're going to see tomorrow morning, like our county manager said, exactly what we're faced with. It's very unpredictable, and it's ever-changing. And I appreciate you guys listening to us because it's very important. At this time, Dr. Bernier, the superintendent of the schools.
Thank you, Sheriff. Dr. Christopher Bernier. Just a reminder to the community that safety is our #1 priority for our students. So after the noon update today from our members who are embedded here at the EOC, we made the determination as a school district to cancel all classes and all offices operations for the next 2 days. We will be closed on Tuesday and Wednesday. Some point during Wednesday, depending on the storm's progression, we will make some determinations about continuity of operations beginning on Thursday. But at this time, I think the most important thing the community needs to do is to use the time we've provided to you to know that your children will be home safely on Tuesday and Wednesday, to make sure that you're doing everything possible to be prepared. Additionally, this was an aspect of making sure that our staff, our principals, and our administrators could also do the same to protect their homes and protect their families prior to beginning to participate in this process as potential shelter coordinators, other information. Our schools are ready. We spent most of the weekend preparing and making sure that everything was topped off and ready to go. And we look forward to being an integral part of this community and serving this community during this time. I now would provide the Lee County Port Authority Executive Director, Ben Siegel.
Thank you, Dr. Bernier. Again, Ben Siegel, Airport Executive Director. So right now, everything at the airport is operating as normal. We expect that things will change over the next couple days. To get the most up-to-date information regarding flights, whether they be cancellations, suspended flights, whatever the case may be, we encourage people that they need to go to the websites of the individual airlines to get that information. In terms of what the airport is doing right now, the airport has spent most of the weekend preparing for the storm and following its progression. What that means is we've been securing all the equipment at the airport, whether it's ground service equipment, whether it's starting to tie down our jet bridges. At either airport, Page Field, for example, all of our tenants have been notified regarding the storm, making sure that they're taking care of their personal assets and their aircraft. And we're ready. And the team at the airport has done a fantastic job getting ready for the storm. Just a reminder to the public that the airports, either airport, we're not shelters. What we are staging areas for recovery. And during periods of time, during hurricanes and events like this, we keep our assets very secure and are available, obviously, during any post-recovery areas for both federal and state uses. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to the county manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. I want to clarify one statement that I made earlier. I may have misspoken about the closings for Lee County government. Our offices and operation will be closed down Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. I think I misspoke. The other thing I want to mention is, even though evacuations have not yet been called for, and we won't know about that till tomorrow morning, particularly on the barrier islands, if you're feeling unsafe, if you're feeling a little nervous about this storm and the effects, it's okay to go now. If you want, execute your plan B, pack up, get off the island now while the drive is easy. If, in fact, we call for evacuations tomorrow morning, the roads, you all know, the roads are going to be really crowded. And so, if you feel like it and you think it's a good idea, now's a good time to get on the road and head to a safer part of the state. With that, we'll answer any questions you have.
Roger, what's different now than 5 years ago in terms of the county's ability to respond during a hurricane?
Bill, I think, I've been working storms, since, sometime in the 90s. And every storm that we work, we learn something new. So the things that absolutely change are we have more people living in Lee County than we did during the last storm. During the last storm, 10 days prior to, we had about 30 inches of rain. And so the flooding caused by Hurricane Irma was simply enormous. Well, this is a really wet storm, and we expect pretty significant rainfall. There have been a lot of flood mitigation projects to the entire system. Now, that's not to say that it's impossible for some of these low-lying areas to flood, because it is. I wouldn't want people to think that all the money that's been spent on these projects guarantees no flooding. In fact, if we get 9 inches of rain over a 2-3 day period of time, the traditional low-lying areas can expect to see, an awful lot of water. Florida's, topographically speaking, is very flat. Water drains slowly, so people should be watching closely for the flooding. Now, beyond that, the partnerships with the sheriff's office, the fire districts, the state of Florida, the federal government are all very, very strong and even more refined than they were 5 years ago. So we have all of the assets at our fingertips to respond and recover no matter the event.
I noticed you said mitigations and assets. Could you just elaborate a little bit more exactly what those are?
Sure. During the last couple of years, several years, we have made sure that all of the conveyance systems, all of the drainage canals throughout Lee County, including the Imperial River down at Bonita Springs, trees, it's very natural to have trees fall across those waterways and impede the flow of water. It slows everything down, backs up the water into the flooded neighborhoods. All of those have been cleared. In fact, our DOT crews and others have been out for the last week making sure that there are none of those impediments. So that's a mitigation effort. And the other is the modification of some of the conveyance structures themselves. The weirs and dams and all have been rebuilt and are operational and very well coordinated.
Can we also talk about the bridge as well? A lot of residents may live in Fort Myers but have to transport to Cape Coral or vice versa. Can you just speak about, the plan for that as well?
Well, the bridges remain open. As the wind velocities continue to increase, that's a decision that we will leave to the sheriff's office. Sheriff Marcino will make the determination when it's too perilous for civilians to cross those bridges.
Are you suspending the tolls that all the governor's done it elsewhere?
I beg your pardon?
Have you suspended any of the tolls on the bridges the governor's done that elsewhere?
The governor did in fact suspend tolls throughout the state of Florida, and that includes the toll bridges in Lee County.
This has been an extraordinarily difficult storm for the National Hurricane Center to forecast. Has that made it difficult for your response as a county?
No more difficult than any other year in the past. It doesn't matter what storm it is. A couple days ago, Fort Myers, Lee County was right in the very center of the cone of uncertainty, and that's really the best place to be, 3 or 4 days out, because the storm will never, ever behave that way. So those variables always exist, and we train for and plan for all the changes in the characteristics of the storm.
How would decisions be made about what shelters to open, and when would you anticipate would be the time you need?
Based on the forecasts overnight, which have an awful lot to do with the wind velocities and how close the storm is to the coast and how much water we would anticipate being pushed onshore in the form of tidal surges, and with the rainfall, once we have a better grasp on all of that dynamic, we'll have a better understanding about what areas we may call for evacuation, and at the same time, determination on what shelters will be open. It's based on the number of people we would anticipate having to evacuate.
In those evacuations, that's something that everybody thinks about, especially during a time like this. That first zone is a very big zone in terms of population and size. Any indications at this time if you're leaning towards that or not?
It is reasonable to think that if there are evacuations, they're going to be in the low-lying areas, right? Everybody knows that if we have tidal surges, those low-lying areas along the coast and in the river will be the first to be affected, followed by those areas that are affected by torrential rainfall. So yes, those are the areas we're thinking about, but to try and define exactly what portions of Zone A will call for evacuation is impossible to tell at the moment.
Okay, we good?
One question for Mayor Smith, if I could. How is the event going as far as getting people from San Diego or doing whatever needs to be done there? What are the challenges that your community faces?
Well, right now, we've had preparations going on for several days, just like Lee County. So we are having a council meeting this evening at 5:30. We'll be talking about our state of emergency, any potential other areas that we need to discuss, whether it's a voluntary evacuation. We stand behind and support the county, and we'll wait for what they do so we can further enact what we need to do on our next phase of potential evacuations. Like they've been saying, we've been advising everyone, have your plan B. be ready. We've been through this before, and we know how serious it can be, and we want everyone to take it very seriously and to listen what's being said to all of our leadership.
For the sheriff, real quick, you kind of talked about law enforcement like ceasing operations on the road around 45 miles an hour. How important is it for folks at home to understand that, and does it go for the sheriff's deputies as well as EMS, fire, all those kind of things?
Yeah, so, and that's a great question. The question is, at 45 miles per hour with sustained winds, that we, law enforcement, are now off the streets. And that's important. Again, have, plan B, meaning be ready, is important, because once this storm hits, if it hits, and if we sustain winds past 45 miles an hour, when you dial 911, we're not responding. So we're off the streets until that wind and storm passes, and then we are going to safely and immediately engage in priority. So it depends on the calls that are holding. We will immediately engage, and those plans are in place. I met with my executive staff numerous times to ensure that we're not going to hesitate 1 second. If we are taken off the street, that we re-engage at the highest level, and our personnel are ready to go at the press of the button. So that's a very important message to get out there, because, again, during that storm, we want you to be ahead of things. We want you to have your plan in place. We want you to be safe. Safety is always our #1 concern, because that response time is going to be delayed. When you dial 911, we're not going to be there during the storm. So think about what that is. If you have any type of special types of things that you need, special care, have all your plans in order so that you can get through that storm, and we immediately engage after. That's our policy. Any other questions? Thank you.
We just heard from Lake County leaders about what they're doing to keep you safe during this storm. I mean, there was a lot they talked about, from closures to first responders and how they operate during this storm as well.
Yeah, we heard from a number of really important people in the decision-making process when we are preparing and then also responding to the storm. So just a couple of the things. First of all, they didn't talk about it in this press conference, but we are getting emails about Charlotte County calling for evacuations of red zone. So barrier islands, low-lying areas, mobile, manufactured homes, calling for evacuation of those. I think that's important. We need to get out there. Back here in Lee County, I also want to touch on what Sheriff Marcino was talking about. If winds are higher than 45 miles per hour, that means his deputies and responding agencies are not going to be coming to you during an emergency, which is huge, because you need to be prepared in your own home. It's just too dangerous out there.
So if you don't, just to touch on that real quick, so if you don't need to go out, don't go out during this time.
Right, I was just going to say that. The underlying message is, if you can stay home, just stay home the next couple of days. A lot of school closures from Tuesday and Wednesday. Lee County schools will be closed Tuesday, Wednesday, as well as Lee County offices, property appraisers, tax elections. So again, you just want to stay home if you can.
And they're also going to be talking about, the city manager was talking about, if you don't feel safe, if you're on a barrier island and you're starting to feel uncomfortable already, he was talking about, making those plans to go inland. Tomorrow morning, they'll be talking about shelters. So that's definitely something we will be monitoring as well.
Yeah, don't feel like you have to wait for your area or your zone to be told to evacuate. You can also just leave preemptively if you want to be on the safer side. We also heard from the airport executive director. Right now, RSW is operating as normal. That could change. They are, prepping, they're securing equipment, tying down jet bridges. Airports are not shelters, but they are used as staging areas. So that is something to note as well. I do want to turn things over, though, to First Alert Meteorologist Rob Duns, who's tracking the latest forecast cone. I think it's important to note that even though there's parts of Southwest Florida outside of the cone, the impacts could still be extreme to us.
Yeah, we are just about done with the preparation period of this. If you're thinking that you're going to leave, you need to start, putting the rubber to the road here, because we're going to start to see some pretty heavy rain as early as tomorrow. So if you're in one of these very, very vulnerable areas to storm surge, there may not be a mandatory evacuation in your area, but if you're uncomfortable, now is kind of the time to get moving because, like I mentioned, the heavy rain opportunities are going to start like as early as overnight tonight and then throughout the day tomorrow. So we're rapidly moving out of the phase of let's think about what I could do. It's almost time to put your plans into action here because the window of time for fair weather is going to be closing, especially throughout the day tomorrow when heavy rain could be moving across the area. All right, so the 2 p.m. advisory now a little more than an hour old. Winds are sustained at 85 miles an hour around the center of circulation, which still, of course, has that as a Category 1 hurricane, but the movement now is to the north-northwest at 13 miles an hour. So that's a bit more of a northerly turn as compared to about 24 to 48 hours ago. Now, I mentioned the rain. You know, tropical moisture out ahead of this hurricane is already starting to push into the area. So we're already seeing some fast-moving showers and thunderstorms that are in connection to Hurricane Ian well out ahead of the actual center of the storm, which is still in the Caribbean Sea to the south of Cuba. You'll notice on First Alert Live Doppler radar right here some pretty fast-moving showers and thunderstorms across the northern tier of Lee County right now, pushing away from North Fort Myers, pushing away from Matlacha. You'll notice here popping up just to the north of Bayshore Road towards Suncoast Estates and over Babcock Ranch, pushing off to the west-northwest 15 miles an hour here this afternoon. They've been able to produce, by the way, 12 lightning strikes in the past 15 minutes. Right this moment, the majority of Cape Coral is fine, but there's some showers that are moving out of the Fort Myers area here, and everything across this tier of Lee County continues to move to the west and northwest as it pushes toward the northwest side there of Lee County. Big picture beyond that, we're also watching some wider coverage of rain across the eastern side of Collier County. This too will be moving to the west-northwest pretty rapidly. So, you know, throughout the 4 o'clock hour, we'll likely see this a swath of showers and storms move into that area like toward Golden Gate Estates and Golden Gate. By the way, 2 areas of our community that simply do not need any more rain as they've had a lot of flooding issues over the past 2 weeks. And with the potential of significant rain with this hurricane over the next 3 days, that flooding risk is going to be pretty high here, especially in parts of Golden Gate Estates. Now, I mentioned, again, if you live in one of these super vulnerable areas and you're hearing about these potential storm surge figures, this is a look at how the weather is forecast to evolve over the next few hours, so you can make the decision here in the next couple of hours on what you're going to do. Because notice here throughout the second half of this afternoon, later on tonight, the forecast models do continue to develop a little wider coverage of some locally heavy rain with the movement here from south to north. So, the air starting to swirl out ahead of our hurricane down in the Caribbean Sea, so you notice a bit of an unusual movement there of this rain as it starts to push across southwest Florida. This is a look toward 10 and 11 o'clock tonight. So notice, at this point in time, this particular forecast model is really not anticipating terribly much in the way of significant rain up and down US 41 and Interstate 75. So, if you're thinking about evacuations, if you live up along the beaches in some of these real vulnerable places, tonight wouldn't be a terribly bad idea to make your plans to either go over to Fort Lauderdale or Miami, where significant dangerous storm surge is not going to occur because they are not seeing any kind of close proximity to the eye or the center of circulation. But remember, inland communities, if you have neighbors or friends in Lehigh Acres or LaBelle or Immokalee or Ave Maria or even Golden Gate Estates, even though they have their own flooding concerns right now, give them a call tonight and say, is there a spare bedroom open or something that I could hang out here for you over the next couple of days? Because once we get past tonight, that's when the opportunities for some locally heavy rain really start to push toward the area. And it looks like throughout the day tomorrow, we'll be in and out of some pretty heavy rain here. Now, the 2 p.m. advisory was an intermediate advisory, so we don't have any revisions to the forecast cone, but I cannot stress enough, do not focus on the center of this cone. The impacts are going to be far out and away from the center of circulation. And even if you want to focus on the center of the cone, look, part of southwest Florida is still very much in it. Remember, the Hurricane Center is trying to say that the eye of this potentially Category 4 hurricane could be anywhere inside this shaded area. If you have a Category 4 hurricane just a few miles off of our shoreline, that's going to bring significant impacts to our area. And notice the time here. This is talking Wednesday morning. It's already Monday afternoon. So again, the timeline that you have available to make these plans or put your hurricane prep plans into action is quickly closing here as we move over the course of the next 3 days as this potentially Category 4 hurricane starts to swirl into our community. If I can ask the producer to give me a time check, how much longer? One more time here, let me stress this risk of storm surge. This is looking at what the European forecast model is suggesting in terms of the center of the storm. And I've put the Hurricane Center forecast cone on here just to give you some perspective on what that looks like. The center of the storm, again, may very well stay off of our shoreline, but look at how the winds evolve throughout all of Tuesday and especially through Wednesday and Thursday. That's when the winds turn onshore, and that's when the risk of storm surge really gets much higher along our southwest Florida coast as the center of the storm continues to move up toward the north and then perhaps into areas of central Florida there towards Sarasota or Tampa or St. Petersburg. So we have a lot to unpack here. Coming up in a few minutes, we'll talk about the storm surge flooding inundation possibilities as our complete and comprehensive team coverage keeps you ahead of the storm, coming up in just a few minutes.
NBC2 is taking a live look now at the latest forecast cone, tracking Hurricane Ian's latest path. Right now at 3 with team coverage. It is already impacting Cuba, and it is expected to intensify within the next 24 hours.
Right now, a tropical storm watch is in place for coastal southwest Florida. We're updating closures on the bottom of your screen, and we have this list on our website as well. We're bringing you team coverage on how it will impact you. NBC2's Samantha Serban is in Charlotte County, where homes are facing flooding risks.
NBC2's Jennifer Vaglis is live in Cape Coral, tracking how the city is keeping canal levels low. Trent Bennett is sharing hurricane hacks every family should know. But first, I want to start with our NBC2 hurricane tracking team in our Hurricane Tracking Center. Let's turn things over to NBC2 First Alert Meteorologist Justin Hobbs.
Yeah, guys, we're continuing to keep a close eye on the development of this system as it is continuing to grow. Winds right now 85 miles per hour. This was with the latest update at 2 o'clock today, so about an hour and 30 minutes ago. We should be starting to get some more information on the center of this as well, because there's a reconnaissance or a hurricane hunter that is flying over the system. They're starting to do their passes, so we're going to continue to see what their drop zones, those measurements, the tools that they're sending down there into the eye. We're going to see what they're saying as they continue to fly eye over this. All right, notice the track though, northwesterly at 13, or northwesterly. That's been the change with that update. And our next update will come in today at 5 o'clock, but we are going to continue to keep a close eye as these hurricane hunters really are giving us minute by minute information of this entire system. Now, as you take a look at the whole system together, very large, very, very large. We're talking 500 miles, if not even greater, all the way across. So keep that in mind as we start to take a look at the cone as we progress through time. So going into tonight, we're watching that rapid intensification. It is taking place right now. By tomorrow, maybe even late tonight, going into tomorrow morning, this is going to be a major hurricane knocking on the doorsteps and rolling into western Cuba. As we progress through time, notice the trend. We start shifting from north-northwest to more northerly, and then by the time we go into Tuesday into Wednesday, that's where we start seeing that shift to more of a north-northeasterly. Here's a look at Wednesday, 8 o'clock in the morning, 140-mile-per-hour winds. What I want you to take away, the biggest thing from all of us is that it doesn't matter if you're in the cone, because if this system is even this close to us, we're going to get the impacts. We're going to see a storm surge from this. How much is going to vary depending on how close it moves to us. But right now, this is not a good scenario for us. As it continues to progress off to the north, here's another big problem. Notice that difference in changing, going from a 4 to a 2, but it's not moving over a large area in a long amount of time. It's moving actually over a long area over a very short amount of time, meaning it's showing signs that it's going to slow down. That is not good, because that means more water to push into us. And here's what I'm talking about, because on that right-hand side, we call that the dirty side for a reason, because we're seeing these winds ripping around the right-hand side. That is shoving the water into our backyards. And if it sits out here on the coast, that would be detrimental for our storm surge. So storm surge, again, our biggest threat. And we're already starting to see some of those tropical moisture bands, some showers that have been moving through. You can see some of those into North Fort Myers, all the way to the northwest Cape into Bokeelia. These are all tracking off towards the northwest. A few showers over there as well, over towards Moorhaven and Clewiston. Got some heavy downpours down here to the south, moving into Collier County. These will be making its way across Alligator Alley into Golden Gate Estates. I want to take you through time as we get into late tonight and into tomorrow. Continue to see a few of these tropical moisture bands moving through. Heading into tomorrow, that's when we start seeing a little bit heavier bands moving in. I think we really start feeling the force and seeing a lot more of the rain. The rain is really going to be tomorrow. That's going to be a lot of our rain that we see throughout Tuesday into Tuesday night. The more so we're going to see the wind impact and the surge impact as we start getting into Wednesday morning, as this is, again, very close to our shore. Going into Wednesday morning, it is still, look at how slow it is moving. It's almost sitting on our coast in a very slow movement. So again, surge is our big thing that we have to prepare for. And like we've been saying, it's not the time to prepare, it's the time to act on your hurricane plans. We're going to continue our team coverage and give you comprehensive information about this hurricane minute by minute as we get it.
All right, Justin, thanks. And we just want to take a second to pull out your phones and open your camera app. You want to point it at this QR code. It's on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. A link will pop up, and it will bring you straight to the NBC2 First Alert Hurricane Guide Plus. Your First Alert Hurricane tracking team has you covered. Throughout Hurricane Ian, things can change quickly, and it's very important that you have information right to the palm of your hand. All right, taking a live look now. Cape Coral, looking a little calm. Pretty sky out there, but going to be a very different story over the next few days. Hurricane Ian could dump rain in communities already prone to flooding, already dealing with flooding.
NBC2's Jennifer Vegas is in Cape Coral explaining what the city plans to do to keep canal levels low during storm surge. Jennifer?
All up and down Burnt Store Road North, you'll find weirs like this. Usually they're up to keep freshwater canals filled with water, but today they're down.
That's what our focus is going to be on today, is making sure that all those systems are clear and have the most capacity as possible to help us get through what may be coming in the next 24 to 48 hours.
That includes possible storm surge, spilling into Cape Coral canals, even up to backyards. That's why today, crews have been all around the Cape lowering weirs and, in turn, canal levels. After major hurricanes like Charlie and Irma, residents are grateful the city is taking precautions.
Our canal kind of tilts this way to that side, so we were fortunate in not having a lot of storm surge over our seawall.
His neighbor across the canal, not so lucky.
Underwater for a day or two till the water went down, the storm surge went down, the storm passed.
Now, city crews have also been driving around to project sites, picking up things like barricades and cones. In Cape Coral, Jennifer Vegas, NBC2.
Coastal communities are the most vulnerable, and Charlotte County has already told families who live in the red zone to evacuate. NBC2's Samantha Serban is in Punta Gorda speaking with people at a sandbag station about their decision to stay or go.
Hundreds of people have stopped here at Hounds on Hendry to fill sandbags for their homes and businesses. Many say they plan to stay here, even if experts suggest they go. With Ian expected to bring heavy rain and storm surge to Charlotte County, many here remember stronger storms like Charlie and Irma and use that to make their decision about Ian.
You know, just going to ride it out like we always do.
Will you guys evacuate if you have to? No. So many are planning to stay no matter what. Others say they've got a plan in place to get to higher ground if necessary.
Yeah, because what I did is I got myself a room at the Holiday Inn over by the airport, so I'm going to head that way, and I hope they don't evacuate that far.
Charlotte County schools will be closed tomorrow. We're getting an update from emergency officials and the sheriff now. I'll be sure to bring you those updates in the next hour. I'm reporting in Punta Gorda. Samantha Serban, NBC2.
And more sandbag stations across Southwest Florida are still open. If you plan on getting sandbags, make sure you bring a shovel. We have a complete list of places that have been offering free sand on our website. Just click on news links. Just make sure you check ahead of time that sand is still available in those stations.
And NBC2 is getting you for some problems you may experience after the storm passes. The Collier County Department of Health is warning us you might see some sewage backups. Remember, septic tanks won't run without electricity. The Department of Health says don't play in those flood waters. They could be contaminated by that sewage. You should use household water as little as possible to prevent backup of sewage into your own home. And if you are having any problems, contact your utility company.
As we continue our storm preparations, now is the time to get your home prepared.
Our hurricane tracking team says today is the day to put up those storm shutters. Storm Smart suggests boarding up the second floor windows first. Firefighters with Lehigh Rescue agree. They say if entrances are hard to access, they will cut through the shutters to get to you in case of an emergency.
More work, more of an issue for us to operate around to ensure that everybody gets out safe or that we can even get into the home. You kind of want them up for the storm and then taken down immediately after or as soon as it's safe to do so.
Storm Smart says over the next few days they're preparing to work more hours to respond to the increase of calls. We're sharing hurricane hacks every family should know. NBC2 is bringing you the latest on air and online.
Well, let's start with the simple stuff. Do you have a penny
As Hurricane Ian inches closer, hopefully you have those hurricane kits and your plans for you and your pets ready to go. NBC2's Trent Bennett shows us some hurricane hacks, including one that will only cost you a penny.
Well, let's start with the simple stuff. Do you have a penny and a cup? If you do, did you know that by placing water into the cup and then putting the cup into the freezer, once your cup of water has iced over, go ahead and take your penny and place it on top of the ice. If at any point the ice melts and your penny goes to the bottom of the cup, that's indication that your food has spoiled. On to protecting the outside of your home. We turn to the experts at Custom Exteriors and Storm Protection in North Fort Myers.
People want to wait, and you've got to be prepared. You have to know where everything is, even if you don't put it up right now.
If custom storm shutters are not an option for you, plywood will often do the trick.
Grab a neighbor to help you.
No water bottles? No problem. Fill Ziploc bags like this to store in your freezer. Don't forget a flashlight and some batteries. I'm in Fort Myers. Trent Bennett, NBC2.
All right, I want to get back to our hurricane coverage. Something that we told you about earlier in the show. Charlotte County is calling for evacuations of the red zone, also known, Justin is saying, as Zone A.
Yeah, I believe that's Zone A.
Okay.
This is for the most vulnerable parts in Charlotte County, and as you are well aware of, Charlotte County is quite vulnerable to storm surge. So like you were just going to mention there, the barrier islands in Charlotte County and in areas like manufactured and mobile homes, this is the time that you need to be putting the hurricane plan into action and taking action to put that into motion, because over the next 24 hours, the weather is going to start to go downhill. We're already seeing rain now, and the rain opportunities will only get higher tomorrow. So, you know, if you want to enact this, if you're in the barrier islands of Charlotte County, if you're in these mobile or manufactured homes, now is the time to be putting your plan into action and, you know, doing what you need to do to stay safe over the next several days. Considering what's going on, there's the possibility here of a Category 4 hurricane off of the coast in the Gulf of Mexico. And remember, it doesn't have to make landfall here for it to be impactful, because if it stays offshore, we get significant onshore winds. So I'm not sure why we're showing this graphic full screen, so why don't I pass things over to Justin, and Justin, if you would pick things up from there.
Yeah, you know, and I'm glad that we're hitting on that fact is, you know, if you've got to do stuff, it's now. Now is the time, put it into action, because we're already starting to see some of that far outer moisture that's moving in, and the bands are only going to get worse from here, especially as we get into your Tuesday. So if you're planning to put those hurricane shutters up, the time would be now to do it today. So that's what we're going to have to really watch as we get into the next couple of hours. The intensity of these continue to grow. Let's go ahead and take it to the wall. We're going to look at a live Doppler radar right now and what we're seeing out there, because we already do have some of that tropical moisture. Yes, this is associated with Ian, although it is way far south of Cuba still. We are starting to see that far outer moisture from it. That is bringing some pretty heavy downpours already to our backyard. So again, today is the time to put plans into action. All right, taking a look at some of that rain. It is in North Fort Myers all the way through Pirate Harbor into the Northwest Cape through Bokeelia. This is moving over towards western Charlotte County. So Placida, Rotunda, you're about to see a nice little downpour. Some spotty showers more so as we get into LaBelle over towards Moore Haven, some pretty heavy downpours. And we're seeing some more band just to the south into southern Collier County. That is inching over Alligator Alley, making its way towards Golden Gate. Ave Maria, you'll be seeing some of that rain move in very soon. That's all tracking to the northwest, right about 15 miles per hour. Taking you further south, though, taking a look at the whole system, you can see those bands way up here. That is where that moisture is that's moving in, but the main cell still closing in on Cuba. Our winds at 85 miles per hour right now. We did have a change in that track as we came into 2 o'clock today. We're now at north-northwesterly. We're going to continue to see not only a slowing of the system, but also the turning of the system. That pressure now at 976 and expected to continue to drop. All right, let's take it through time and show you what we could potentially see. This is just one model, okay? So as we go into tonight, again, just seeing some of those bands of that far outer moisture moving through. Heading into tomorrow, I think tomorrow is going to be quite the rainy day. We're going to see rounds of heavy downpours, possibly some strong, maybe even severe storms associated with these bands that are moving through. There's a look at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. This is why we're saying right now is the time to act, because it is going to be quite rainy out there by the time we get into tomorrow afternoon. As we get towards the evening hours, we're watching the system approach the coast. Getting towards Tuesday night into Wednesday, we're looking at a potential Category 4 system right off our coast. That's bringing winds in towards us. That's when we start seeing those winds really picking up. This is where we start seeing the surge pushing in as we get into overnight Tuesday into Wednesday. The concern we really have is how long is this going to sit on the side of our coast? A lot of the models, both GFS and the European model, are really inching it, making it almost crawl right up from the northwest portion of our viewing area up the Suncoast into Tampa. If it sits there and just crawls up our coast, it is going to continue to push water into our shorelines. This is why our main concern with this system is storm surge, and it's going to continue to be storm surge, even if we're outside of the cone. Folks in, say, Naples, who are outside of the cone, storm surge is still going to be an issue. We also are going to keep an eye on that heavy rain, flooding, winds, and that potential for tornadoes as well. That is on the lower threat, but that threat is still there. Let's talk about that main threat, though, the surge potential. So this is kind of a give or take a more wide range look. So 4 to 7 feet potential from really the Charlotte Harbor down through Lee County. As you cross over into Collier County, 3 to potentially 5 feet. Further up to the north, the higher that gets. But let's take a little bit more of a worst case scenario, more high resolution kind of look at the potential surge. Of course, this red shaded area, that is a very low lying area. So let's more so focus in, you can see those yellows and oranges. Matlacha, you can see that potential. And a worst case scenario, maybe up to even 6 feet of water. Charlotte Harbor, a very big potential here, especially because the water is just going to push into the bay and it is going to pretty much just rise out of the rim. That's the only place it has to go. So you can see the flood potential, it gets higher as you get towards the north. However, to the south, we still have that potential, especially in very low-lying areas along the barrier islands. We could see those waters still, even 3, possibly some areas, maybe up to even 6 feet of water. So, again, listen to these warnings. If you're told to evacuate, it is time to do so. A storm surge watch is in place right now. That will be more so updated to the warning once it becomes about 36 hours out that threat is in our place. Tropical storm watch is also still in place all the way inland through Lake Okeechobee. You can see there are the offshore waters now under that warning, not for land quite just yet. However, we're going to keep a close eye to see if we do see a switch from that hurricane watch, if that potentially could shift towards us. Right now, it's just a watch for us. The surface winds, as we do progress this, and this is the European model, this is, again, that concern, those winds. This is why we call the right-hand side of the systems the dirty side, because the winds are ripping around it. This is where they are tightening into the center and they are pushing waters into land. So that is why really this taking a more offshore approach is actually not a good case scenario for us. So as we are going into the next couple hours, we're going to continue to see how the trends are going to play out with this. But I want the big takeaway to be is it's still going to be right on our coast, and where it's at and potentially going to be positioned at, this is not a good case scenario for us. This is pushing waters right into our backyard. And so again, as we are getting some of those evacuation orders to start to come down, you need to listen to them. And this is a great quote coming from the National Hurricane Center telling us this is the biggest concern, the slowing motion. That would, again, push more water. It's going to allow it to continue to push into us. All right, let's look at that 7-day forecast as well, because this is going to take a couple days to get out of here. Not only tomorrow, but going to Wednesday. We may even still see some bands as we get into Thursday, depending on how much it does slow down. Once we get past this system, we could still continue to see some bands, some scattered storms as we get into Friday and Saturday. Then we'll start seeing that chance of rain starting to diminish as we get towards the next week. But we'll continue to keep a very close eye as we get minute-to-minute information. We'll be sure to keep you updated.
Thank you, Justin. The best way for you to keep yourself informed during any weather event is to download our NBC2 weather app. It's free to download on the Apple App Store and Google Play. Once you get it, make sure to turn on those push notifications so you can stay updated. Our team of meteorologists is continuing to track Hurricane Ian. We'll be right back after the break.
The Florida National Guard has activated 5.
Okay. I can hear Kyla's mic. In preparation for the storm's landfall, Governor Ron DeSantis has declared a state of emergency in all 67 counties, and the State Emergency Operations Center is activated at level 1. Today, he gave an update about what the state is prepared to do when Hurricane Ian hits Florida.
The Florida National Guard has activated 5,000 Florida Guardsmen, as well as 2,000 additional Guardsmen from Tennessee, Georgia, and North Carolina that have been activated to help. We've also have 5 urban search and rescue teams that are activated.
DeSantis is suspending tolls in Florida. One is in our area on Alligator Alley on I-75. Count on NBC2 to bring you any more updates on that. As things like gas and plywood become harder to find, some people will try to take advantage. But don't forget, it is illegal to raise prices for goods or services after a declared state of emergency. Gouging complaints will be investigated. They will compare prices from 30 days before that emergency was declared. And if someone is caught doing this, it is a second-degree misdemeanor. If you think you're a victim, call the price gouging hotline. We'll have that number on our website. And while you're getting your boat, home, and family ready, don't forget about your four-legged friends, of course. NBC2 is making your family and your pets are prepared in the event of this storm. Make sure you have a carrier. They're required at storm shelters, by the way. Remember to have extra food. Make sure you have all your pets' vaccination, medical records, and make sure they are all up to date.
It's very important, especially for people who may need to go to a public shelter, because you cannot bring your animal with you unless they're fully immunized and vaccinated.
Right.
It's also a good idea to take an updated picture with your pet, a selfie of you two, so if you get separated, you will have proof that you are the owner. And to help pet owners prepare, the Cape Coral Animal Shelter is offering free wire crates and carriers to those pet owners. They're also offering free cat and dog food to those in need. You can head to the shelter today until 4 o'clock and tomorrow from 9 until noon. We have more information on our website, nbc-2.com. Just click news links. If you are preparing your generators, you need to make sure you are safe with them. Never run those inside your home or your garage. You want to keep your generator 20 feet away from all doors, windows, and vents because carbon monoxide can seep into your home and that can be deadly. Most importantly, you need to have working carbon monoxide detectors inside your houses. Experts also recommend to turn your generator on before plugging any appliances into it. And make sure to keep your kids and pets away from them too. It's also important to remember, plan ahead and stay informed. As our NBC2 hurricane tracking team monitors Hurricane Ian, we want to make sure you are prepared and your hurricane kit is ready to go. It should have things like non-perishable foods, water for at least 3 days per person and per pet, a week's supply of medications, flashlights, batteries, and make sure, again, you have plenty of pet food and supplies. NASA isn't taking any chances with Hurricane Ian. Today, it announced it is moving the Artemis 1 rocket back to its garage at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. That means it will delay the launch for at least a few weeks. Scientists say they don't want to take any risks. NBC2 continues to track Hurricane Ian. We're giving you minute-by-minute updates straight to your phone. So if you want that, pull out your phone, point it towards the screen, towards that QR code, and a link will pop up. It will bring you straight to the NBC2 First Alert Hurricane Guide Plus. Your First Alert Hurricane tracking team has you covered for the next few days as Hurricane Ian comes to Florida.
All new, ahead at 4.